So in answer to your question, it was not an overnight process. Thankfully, the internet had been invented by the time I got divorced the second time. And I got online and I started dating online, and I was very clear right from the very beginning that I was poly, and I wasn't gonna mince any words about it. I met many, many women. If I bring a new partner in, or if they get a new partner, I know how to talk about it. And it's a skill, and you just have to develop the skill. And I don't know very many exclusive couples that ever learn this skill, because they're even afraid to talk about it. How do you tell your quote monogamous partner, you know, I'm getting tired of the sex we're having here. Would you mind if we changed it up? But at least we can talk about it. If we can't talk about it, that's the problem.
And it's interesting now, 9 years into polyamory, when I interact with people who are newer to polyamory, and I'm like, no, I don't need your passwords. You do you. Just, you know, tell me in a timely manner. Are you being safe? Like, let's have these check-in conversations. And they're like, you know, none of my other partners have ever asked me what my boundaries are. None of my partners have ever asked me what I was interested in sexually. None of my partners have ever asked me what time commitments work best for me, because people aren't trained to really have those kind of conversations with other people. But I think it adds to my overall relationship happiness, whether those are romantic, sexual, or platonic partners.
I approach them the same way though. I mean, although you identify yourself as polyamorous, if I'm exclusive, if I'm going to be exclusive with someone, I don't care if they go through my phone, because I have nothing to hide. I feel like if I have nothing to hide, then they should have nothing to hide. I'm not going to ask to go through their phone, because in my mind, it doesn't matter. I'm going to find out. If she's not being mutually exclusive like I am, then I'm going to find out, and that'll be a relationship for me. Okay, that's fine. This just isn't it for me. And if she feels like she needs to have the password to my phone, that's fine. I would not. I'm never opposed to that. In fact, I encourage it.
I was going to mention to your point that what we are talking about now, like some of the traits of within polyamory, or the traits that are in monogamous.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Get the knife, Jordan. But yeah, there's
I won't hurt anybody. Shouldn't sharpen them.
You know, I've heard, you know, some of the overarching narrative has been communication is key. You know, honesty, patience. Like, that's not exclusive to polyamorous relationships. I think that is like a broad, even if you don't have like an exclusive relationship, that's relationships regardless of any intimate partner, you know, title that you may give your relationship.
Because I'm interested in knowing how a person is going to react when they're at their worst. If we're in an argument and we can't stand each other, I want to know what those times are like, because I know that the honeymoon phase is going to go away eventually. But how is this person when they're angry? How is this person when they're happy? How is this person when they're sad? Can they communicate their feelings to me about how they feel, and can we grow? I mean, because if they're telling me how they feel, and if I can't fix it, I'm completely okay with walking away and saying, maybe this just isn't it. And I think that, I know that my beliefs won't change, but I think that maybe if you're in a polyamorous relationship, maybe instead of walking away from that relationship, maybe you just say, well, I can find someone else to fit that need for me. Is that how that would work?
Possibly. I think something that you said is you want to know what they're like at their worst when you disagree. And I think that's important. Because you're not always going to agree, but until you've had that first fight, right? And some people never get to that first fight. They avoid it at all costs. But until you get to that first fight, can you really trust that relationship? Can you believe that their no means no and their yes means yes?
Like, that's why I really do like getting past that first fight stage, because then I can see how I am with them at my worst, and I can see how they are with me at their worst. So
that tells a lot about a person.
Yeah. Going back to what you brought up a little earlier, Taylor, about the way poly relationships start, when people are first getting into it, I think that's something we really haven't talked about yet. But and I'm sure you guys have seen the same thing, when people first get into poly, they put all these rules and contracts.
Rules.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you've got to have virtually a legal system in order to go out and date anybody. And it's really ironic, because you're trying to become better at communicating not at controlling, and yet controlling is, so it takes a while to develop whatever that is. And I confess, early on, I was a little bit more rule-based than I am ever have been recently. I think a lot of people go through that phase.
Yeah, it was always, at the beginning, it was like, well, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do, it was always, the rules at the beginning, for me, especially, was what I can't do, or what my partners can't do. Now the rules are, if there are rules, it's what we can do. You know, you can go love someone else. It's, you know, not, well, you can't love them. You can have sex with them, but you can't love them. You know, or, but now it's, yeah, go love someone else. Just let me know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, there's not so much rules now as guidelines.
Yeah.
I think the distinction, and Multi-Amory, which is a podcast, does a really good job. They have an episode specifically on the difference between rules and boundaries.
Right, yeah.
And I had to learn the hard way that I don't have rules for my relationship, I have boundaries. And boundaries are like what protect you and affect like your actions versus rules which affect somebody else's actions. And I have to sit there and for years I had to sit there and think, you know, are these rules that I want this other person to follow, are these guidelines, would I want someone to tell me I had to follow those? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, is that fair? Is that okay? And really working through, like, what is the difference between what is in there to protect me versus what is in there to inhibit somebody else's behavior.
But then some of the guidelines that you, or rules that you impose may not necessarily apply to you, whereas that person needed those rules because they can't self-govern.
Yeah, and that's hard because I went through several relationships where I had people who said, you can have all the sex you want with anybody, go have at it. You're not allowed to have feelings.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you self-govern feelings? How do you stop yourself from like waking up one day and saying, I have a connection with this person that's more than just sex or more than just friendship? How do you control that? And you can't.
Because I'm still kind of learning about poly relationships as well. So what I'm hearing is like, you know, stuff you can't control on somebody's individual being, like their feelings. But, you know, if you have a rule like you can go have sex, but it needs to be safe sex, like used with a condom, like it's a respectable rule, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
That is
just making sure. It's just because I'm just like,
Yeah, I
some
have- I
people
have
would just be
two
like,
rules.
what? And like just.
Safe sex and open and honest communication. I feel like those are rules that if someone came to me and said, hey, these are my 2 rules, I'd be like, okay, that's fine, I can agree to that.
Yeah, that's my one rule is safe sex.
Yeah.
So is there a cap? Like, I mean, how many partners is too many partners?
Everyone
like, how
has to
many
decide that on their
partners?
own.
Okay.
I can't sit here and say what's right for Taylor. You know, Taylor knows her time commitments, Taylor knows her available energy, you know, she has to make those decisions for herself. For me, you know, this summer I had another girlfriend. I don't have the time or the energy to have more than 2 relationships right now. That's just where I'm at, you know, but everyone has to make that decision on their own. You can't make that for someone else. You should never enforce what you think is right on someone else.
I'm hearing a lot about guidelines and boundaries and these relationships that you guys have, which is very interesting because I feel like in exclusive relationships, there's only one rule, and it's don't cheat. Like, you know, I hear you guys talk about you can cheat, but you can't catch feelings, or you can do this, but you can't do that because
Cheating is never okay.
And I
Yeah.
feel as if
Never.
it's the lie that really gets to people, not the fact that somebody is. Because the thing is, I feel as if cheaters wouldn't be so shameful if they could say, hey, I love you, but I also love somebody else while still loving you. And the thing is, they have to keep that lie.
world, it's more of the lie that gets you more than the cheating.
Yeah,
itself.
you went behind me and did something without telling me the truth as if you needed to hide that from me.
And the way I'm thinking about it is that, you know, like you said, in polyamorous relationships, you guys were saying that, oh, you guys can have sex, but you can't have feelings and communication. Well, if I'm in an exclusive relationship with somebody, communication is an expectation. That's not a guideline or a principle. You know,
You'd be surprised how many people, not just monogamous, not just poly, not just whatever. People don't communicate.
Yeah, just
Right.
period. Just with a long relationships with just people, period. Just friends, family members.
So is polyamory, I know we've been using open relationships and polyamory a little synonymous here. Is it synonymous? Are those two terms that are one and the same? Open
To
relationship?
me, no. To some people, yes. But to me, I see more open relationships is almost the more don't ask, don't tell. It's like, okay, I know you're doing it, but just don't tell me about it, and it's okay. Where polyamory definitely is open, honest communication. You know, you don't have to tell everything, but you definitely don't avoid telling everything either. Like Taylor said, you know, let them ask, you know, what they